afternoon, everyone. My name is Chen. I'm the son of Dr. Victor Yu. On behalf of all of our entire family, we're so honored to have all of you here today. It means a lot to our family that you all took the time out of your busy schedules to remember the life and the legacy of him, a dear friend and obviously colleague to many of you. I'd like to start off just by covering a few logistics. All the speakers will be muted through the formal program, but we'd like to invite you to use the chat function freely during the service. You'll see the chat button hopefully on the bottom of your screen there. And in that chat box, you can post comments or even any of your stories about my father that you'd like to post and share. Further, at the end of the formal program, we'll be opening up the meeting to everyone, and we invite you to reminisce, stick around, and share stories with other attendees. In the meantime, if you're looking for an agenda, we have a link in the chat box that you can click on at any time. And Grace, maybe you might want to just repost that as well, just in case it didn't show up. And just as a final heads up, that the memorial will be recorded, and we'll post a link on this memorial later on the website afterwards. And Grace will also post a link to that website in the chat room as well, just in case you can't find it. So when we were thinking of how to start off today's service, we really couldn't think of anything more indicative of his kind of native state than to see my father tell a funny story with all of his mannerisms. And so we thought we'd start off with one of his favorite stories that he loved to tell, about an airplane story. So take it away.
I don't remember the exact date, but I was invited to go to Paris, and it was funded by the French government. And there were a number of prominent speakers, and I was supposed to speak on Legionnaire's disease. And the incredible thing is they paid for my entire family, both lodging and economy class airfare. Well, here's the story. So we get on the airplane, and we're excited to go to Paris. And partway through the trip, an announcement goes on to the from the stewardess. Is there a doctor on this plane? Is there a doctor on this plane? If so, press your light button. Well, I've sort of been in that situation, and this is a trap. You end up doing something, and it sort of ruins your whole trip. And I'm watching the National Lampoon comedy, and there's no way that I'm going to not finish this show. I would never pay money to see it, but here's my one chance. And then a second call goes up, and boy, I'm not stupid. I'm not answering that call. And when the third one calls, I look around, and Ting and Chen are looking at me, sort of wondering what I'm going to do. So I take a deep breath, and I walk up to the stewardess, and I'm dressed in my blue hooded sweatshirt that I wear even today, and very informal. And I say to her, I'm a physician. And she looks me up and down, and she says, are you a graduate of an American medical school? And that is the actual truth. She actually said that to me, and I went, oh my gosh. So she ends up taking me to see a patient who turns out to have chest pain. And I look, and I know I've been suckered in. And the first thing I do is I see the National Lampoon going on without me because I don't have my earphones on. So I can't even hear it. So I look at the guy, and they clear the seat next to him. And so I talk with him. I said, what is your problem? He says, I have chest pain. And I'm thinking, just get a brown paper bag and blow into it. You know, people hyperventilate and all sorts of things. So that's the last thing I do. I've missed probably an important part, and I hate to, see the middle of a movie. It just ruins it for me. So I talked to the nurse, or the stewardess, and I'm very annoyed, and I said, get me a glass of orange juice right now. I mean, she's been I was a little offended by the way she addressed me in the first place. So she quickly brings a glass of orange juice, and I go, thank you. I drank it because I was so thirsty. Gave her back the cover. She looks at me. Then I said, could you bring me the medical kit? And she doesn't know what I'm talking about. And I said, it's the medical kit that has a stethoscope, and it has nitroglycerin, and it actually has vials of morphine, I believe. So I asked for that. And then quickly she does bring it, and there's a stethoscope. So I asked the passenger, who I judge would be in his late 30s or early 40s. And well, what could a young guy, relatively young guy like that, have a problem with? And so he has chest pain. So I'm going to go through all the machinations. I take his blood pressure, which is normal. Now I unbutton his shirt to listen to his heart, and hopefully I'll get back to my seat soon. And I'm startled when he opens his shirt. There's a zipper going right up his chest. Well, what's a zipper? In doctor's parlance, he has a surgical scar, and the stitches go horizontally, so it looks like a zipper. This guy has had cardiothoracic surgery, and now it's a new ballgame. I said, what is that? And he said, I have had open heart surgery with coronary bypass. And I looked at him, but I said, you're so young. And he says, I had it a year ago, and I go to Johns Hopkins every year for my medical checkup. And now I know I'm going to miss the movie, the entire movie. So I listened to his chest, and it's fine. No murmur, normal cardia, that is, pulse rate is good. And then I asked him to take some nitroglycerin. And does he have any chest pain? And he has some lingering chest pain, but I insist that he take the nitroglycerin. And I listened to him, and I know what it's going to be all about. Every 30 minutes, I'm going to have to take his blood pressure and then ask him. And if he has some problems, the worst thing I have to do is give him mouth-to-mouth respiration, because that's what we did in those days. We'd compress his chest and so forth. But so I take his blood pressure, everything is fine, and I sit next to him. I'm thinking about getting the earplugs so I can see the rest of the movie, but it's just, maybe I'll see it on the return flight. So I do that, and at first I do it every 15 to 20 minutes, but things are stable, so I actually set the timer, so every 30 minutes I'll be reminded, and then he'll let me know if anything happens. About a half hour to an hour later, the captain shows up, and I said, yes, and he says, Doctor, we're at the halfway point now. If you think we should go back to JFK Kennedy in New York, which is the starting point, we can go back now. This is exactly the halfway. After this, if you really want to, if you sense an emergency, we'll have to, we won't go to Paris, we'll go to Gatwick Airport in London. And I'm thinking, this is my free trip to Paris. No way am I going back. Onward to Paris. And I said, no problem. We go to Paris. And the captain says, well, we'll drop the level down to 30,000 feet or something like that, that there's more oxygen. That's fine with me, just as long as we get to Paris. So we go to Paris, and actually it's relatively uneventful. And I'm so happy, and we land, and I've already known that there's an ambulance on the ground waiting, and they're all ready. And as we land, the first guy to get off, of course, is this passenger, and the medics come in, and they've got a cart, and he says, no, he says, I'm fine, I feel great, thank you, doctor, for saving my life, and shakes my hands, and tries to walk off. They literally tackle him, grab him, slam him onto the gurney, strap him down, and he disappears. So anyway, as we get off the plane, the captain and the stewardess come up to me and say, "Doctor, thank you very much. We really appreciated what you went through. And to show our appreciation, we're going to upgrade you to first class on your return trip to the United States." And I said, "Really?" And he said, "Yes, that's the least we could do." And considering that it was a movie that I lost, okay. No, and I said, "Oh, thank you. And will you take my family too?"
Well, so hopefully you all got a taste, and I'm sure many of you guys have heard funny stories like that from my father over the years. In fact, I'm probably guessing he's told that story to many of you as well. So with that, what we thought we'd do is we'd start off with some remarks from our family. So I think to start us off, I'd like to transition over to my sister, Ting Yu.
Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for being here. We're incredibly touched that so many people from different parts of my dad's life are here to remember him. It means so much to us. Also, not to leave you all with a cliffhanger there with my dad's story, our entire family actually did fly home first class from Paris that day. And my dad always joked that that's where Chen got his taste for the high life. So, okay. It's impossible to distill my dad's remarkable life into a few minutes, so I am not going to try. But as I sat down to write this, I thought, what advice would Bob give to me? And he'd say, tell a story, be specific, and have a point. So here's one last story about my dad. Those of you who knew my dad as a medical researcher are well acquainted with his emphasis on publishing. If it's not published, it didn't happen, he'd say. But this Victor Yu adage extended beyond his research to another principle that my dad lived by, which was expressing gratitude to those who have helped you. My dad was actually known to jot down the names of exceptionally helpful customer service representatives and later write to their department supervisors to make sure they got credit for a job well done. And my dad saw teaching as the highest calling. It could shape lives and change people's trajectories. And he treated this responsibility as a true privilege. He poured everything he had into educating symposium audiences, mentoring fellows, and raising me and Chen. And my dad also felt it was especially important to recognize educators who had positively impacted our lives. So if you attended my wedding, you may remember my dad's epic 17-minute toast when he recounted how Chen, my brother, was so outgoing and academically precocious as a child. And I, on the other hand, was this introverted, slow, plodding. Anyway, I guess my parents were a little worried about me or something. But my elementary school principal, Barbara Float, assured my dad that I was simply a late bloomer. And throughout my time at Foster Elementary, Miss Float steadfastly expressed her deep belief in my potential. And my dad never forgot her faith in me and how she championed me all through those years. So when I was in high school, Miss Float retired and my dad urged me to write her a personal letter to thank her, which I did happily. And then going back to that first principal I mentioned, he took my letter and unbeknownst to me had it published in Mount Lebanon magazine. And then he did the exact same thing a few years later after I'd written this super long, heartfelt tribute to my high school tennis coach, Chuck Stoll, when he retired, straight to Mount Lebanon magazine. So just a few years ago, when I was editor of Teach for America's magazine, I was writing a story about the winner of a teaching award. And it brought to mind one of my own favorite teachers, this very charismatic high school chemistry teacher named Mr. Kernion. He wrote and performed guitar songs about molecular mass and called himself the Kern ion. And he was amazing. And I thought of him often when I became a teacher myself. And so this time, with no urging from my dad, I wrote to Mr. Kernion, thanking him for being the source of so much inspiration through the years. And then I BCC'd my dad on the email, knowing he would be so thrilled to see that I had internalized his critical lesson. You all know where this is going. So about a week later, I received an email from my dad. Tingo, remember your letter to Miss Float in Mount Lebanon magazine, which you, I published? She wrote to me afterwards, and what I want to tell you is that your letter had a major ripple effect. After it was published, other parents and students reached out to Miss Float to express their appreciation to her. And as you know, teachers rarely get acknowledged for their influence by those who appreciated them most, which is why I plan to edit your letter and with your permission, submit it for publication in Mount Lebanon magazine. Now that I think about it, I'm not asking your permission. I'm going to send it in right now. Love, Bob. And not long after, Mr. Kernion sent me his own letter thanking me for giving him the most meaningful gift he said he'd ever received in his 33 years as a teacher. So in keeping with my dad's emphasis on expressing gratitude to our greatest teachers, I wanted to take this opportunity to thank my dad, Victor Yu, who was my first and lifelong teacher. And who knows, this may show up in Mount Lebanon magazine in a couple of weeks. Baba, from you, I learned that you can never be too prepared. While your fishing vest became a liability after the introduction of 9/11 airport security measures, I'll never forget when I asked you for a paper clip and you produced one after rifling through every pocket of your vest, showcasing scissors, floss, nail clippers, latex gloves, Ziploc sandwich bags, a stapler, and a full set of miniature screwdrivers. Thank you for passing on to me your love of sentimental musical numbers, stand-up comedy, and The Lord of the Rings. Despite many years of enduring Chen and my comments about your rumpled personal style, I'm humbled to admit that you were actually the trailblazer of the fanny pack. You traveled the world giving lectures, but always remembered to bring me a souvenir rabbit, which is my Chinese zodiac sign, from every place you visited. I still have all of your rabbits. You taught me that good writers are not just good wordsmiths, they're good thinkers with something to say. You showed me what a true feminist was. Before I even knew the word. As a kid, I remember your exuberant praise of my mom, Debbie, and her success as a realtor, and the integrity and brilliance of your collaborators, Janet Stout and Jenny Grandis. Thank you for giving me a lifetime subscription to The New Yorker. It has done more to shape me as a writer than anything else. You showed me that striving for excellence is a lifelong pursuit. You took tennis lessons into your 70s and never gave up on having me drill your forehand. But you have to remember to follow through up over the shoulder. You taught me to welcome criticism from people I respect because it will make me better. And without intending to, you also taught me that how you deliver that advice is key to its reception. Otherwise, I would have gone to medical school. And at the same time, once I made my own choices, you honored them. You always took every opportunity to tell me how proud you were of me as a writer, a teacher, and a mother. And yours was always the highest praise. I remember every word and will carry them with me for the rest of my life. Thank you for your last gift, waiting for me and Chen, so that we could hold your hands and walk with you on your last journey. Okay, I have actually one last story. Back in 2001, when I was a few years out of college, my dad took me on a trip of a lifetime, a week of whitewater rafting down the Grand Canyon. It was the first time I saw him as something other than my tiger dad. And on that trip, we braved the rapids and camped under the stars with a group of strangers who would become our friends. You know, within my dad's scientific circles, he was a very dynamic presence, a master storyteller, a forceful debater. But sitting by a campfire on the banks of the Colorado River, he was just this smiling guy, happy to sit back and listen. And I was struck by my father's genuine interest in other people, his curiosity about their lives and perspectives, and his sincere desire to learn their stories. And I've realized through observing him all these years that this was actually the secret to how he built this extraordinary community that sustained him throughout his life. He never missed a Marshall High School or Carleton College reunion and always encouraged me to attend mine. He belonged and contributed generously to so many groups, his beloved extended family, his equally beloved ID research group and colleagues, the Pittsburgh Chinese camping group led by Tony and Gracia Lee, his Bridgeville Chess Club with his dear friend Art Levitt, and his decades-long doubles partners, Andy Kovacic, John Chi, and Judy and Joe Clover. To all of you, your camaraderie and your friendship were the great joys of my dad's life, and the stories you all have shared are his true legacy. So if there were two lessons I believe Victor Yu, the teacher, would want to impart, and as you all know, my dad was like a real big proponent of imparting lessons. it's these. First, that pursuing noble goals with passion and integrity is the path to happiness. And second, that the strength of your relationships with your family and your community are the true meaning of life. Baba, I think you succeeded wildly in both. We love you and we miss you dearly, and we will carry you with us always.
Thank you, Ting. So I think we'll move over next to my Uncle Bob, Victor Yu's brother.
I'm Bob Yu, Victor's brother. My big brother passed away at 79, and I'm 78, and my kid sister is a useful 75. I think we should mention that we were an immigrant family, and our mother and father were foreign students that came to the United States from China to attend the University of Minnesota. They left their sense of belonging behind to a new Western society, and they struggled to fit in. English was a second language, and my father struggled all his life to make himself understood. And although he was the smartest guy in the room, he was passed over for promotions. He single-handedly ran the trust department at one of the largest banks in Minnesota and trained entire staff of tax law and accounting procedures. But he was passed over for any promotions until years later when it became an embarrassment for the bank. My father, true to his humble nature, never mentioned any of this to us and never talked about it. But we found out about it from my father's co-workers. Victor was the firstborn, and he intrinsically knew that he would be competing for a place in American society. And he was the smartest guy in the room, and he strived to be the best in everything he did. It saddens me to see that I won't see Victor again. But Victor and Debbie gave us two wonderful people, Chen and Ting and their family, Grace and Howard, Koby, Matomi, Roland, Oscar, Iris, and Leo. Thank you.
Thanks, Uncle Bob. I know that was hard, but well, we have lots to say about you and my dad, obviously, brothers all the way to the end. Maybe now we'll turn it over to my Aunt Joyce.
Hi, I'm Joyce Yu, obviously Victor and Bob's younger sister. In reflecting on Vic's life, I think he was driven by an idea that he had to live life with a purpose. And so to me, he lived this life in 4 different ways. He believed in connections. And Ting talked about it, and some of the submissions talk about that. But for me, he remembered the names of my high school friends, my college friends. He recalled their nicknames and asked incredulously, often for decades, and why didn't she go to Radcliffe if she got in? So he remembered my high school boyfriend, who also went to Harvard and became an early software developer. And he was based in San Francisco. So when Victor moved to Stanford for his medical residency, he looked up my high school boyfriend. Why would you do that? And talked to him about developing an innovative software for physicians' notes. Obviously, there wasn't Wi-Fi then. And so my high school boyfriend said, well, you got to have some kind of connection. So he was always thinking of these relationships and how they can build and make a better world. He also brought joy and generosity wherever he could. And he started telling jokes in high school. And I recall it was in 9th or 10th grade, his chemistry class. And he came home and he told us that the teacher asked a question about glucose. And Victor answered the question by saying, what about French toast? So after his residency in Denver, he joined an established family practice. He did this in order to pay off his enormous college medical school debts. And when he got his first paycheck, he split it between Bob and me. Bob does not remember, and hopefully Debbie didn't know. But anyway, to me, it demonstrated that he was present for us without asking, without reservation. So he was signaling, to me at least, that he was ready to help me if I needed help. So he became a pillar, a support beam in my adult life. I asked him for career advice occasionally. And once he said, don't worry, excellence floats to the top. So I thought, what am I supposed to do? Work harder, work smarter. But he believed in me unconditionally. And he was enthusiastic about my work, and he visited every one of my international duty stations around the world. So he was really always there for me. As a teenager, I cooked Thanksgiving dinner for my family and his college roommate. And literally for decades, Victor said that that was the best meal he had ever had in his life. Hard to believe. But Victor's life was also marked with selfishness and selflessness. And many of you have given examples in the website with stories of how he helped you. And so I'm not going to go into that. But lastly, with every endeavor, Victor jumped in with dedication. And I think it started with his comic book collection. He had the first editions of Superman and Batman. He collected hundreds of 45 the little discs with the big hole of sock music. And in grade school, we couldn't afford an endless number of model airplanes that boys assembled. So instead, he drew them in an art sketchbook with really great accuracy. So maybe he thought he was going to be an engineer, but he based these photos on bubblegum cards. From high school through medical school, he lifted weights. And I think he was trying to match my brother Bob's athletic build. All his life, he strove to try to get up there. And he would practice his Taekwondo on me in the basement. And they were all near misses. And I was supposed to stand still, which I did obediently. And later on in life, he denied that he ever did that. I remember it. And of course, his medical profession and career is really a profound lesson in dedication. Thich Nhat Hanh, who died recently, a famous Buddhist priest, wrote a poem about dying, and I'd like to read an excerpt. Since before time, I have been free. Birth and death are the only doors through which we pass. Sacred thresholds on our journey, birth and death are a game of hide and seek. So laugh with me, hold my hand. Let us say goodbye. Say goodbye to meet again soon. We meet today, we will meet tomorrow. We will meet at the source of every moment. We will meet each other in all forms of life. So that is Victor, our righteous, tenacious, loving brother. Your spirit lives in me. And my brother Bob, deep in our hearts forever. Our lasting image of him is probably of ourselves as young teenage kids. And so Victor was a teenage boy to me with big ears and a big grin. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Google. I have that huge comic book collection sitting in my garage as we speak. And my guess is it's probably worth a lot of money. I just don't know what's worth what. Okay, thank you. Now we'll do, I think I'd like to transition over to Grace. She's my wife and daughter-in-law to my father.
The last week has given me a lot of space to reflect on who Victor Yu was to me. I read through folders of his emails and letters and think that more than anything I could say about him, his own words capture the essence of who he was. I hope you don't mind, but I've excerpted a few choice ones for you all here. One of my first memories of meeting Baba was when I'd been dating Chen a few months in college and visited Pittsburgh for the first time. I had heard of his many memorable character traits at the time, but had not personally experienced any of them. On the first night of my visit, we all went out to dinner together. I was on my best behavior, wanting to make a good impression. As the entrees arrived at the table and the dinner conversation unfolded, I noticed that Baba had moved his chair away from the table a little bit. He was uncharacteristically quiet, legs crossed, hands in his lap, head bowed down, eyes closed. He appeared to be deep in thought. I looked around the table to see if anyone else was noticing what was happening. A few minutes passed. Everyone continued to talk as usual. Clearly, I thought to myself, from their vantage points, they must not have been able to see what I was seeing. A few more minutes passed. His head dropped a little more. His breathing slowed. A faint sigh escaped his lips. I suddenly realized he was not deep in thought. Victor Yu was fast asleep at the dinner table. As many of you here today already know, Baba has always been chronically sleep deprived. A man as widely read as he knew the importance of sleep. And in fact, I'm sure he has sent many articles about sleep that have been in classic Victor Yu fashion, highlighted and commented on. He just couldn't do it very well at night himself, it seems. He always had another paper to write, another movie to review, another New Yorker article to send to one of his children. His solution then? Take cat naps throughout the day, even if it's during the middle of dinner at a pretty nice restaurant. Over the ensuing years, I, like the rest of his family, would also become oblivious to the fact that he could sleep anywhere and at any time. Over the 27 years that I have known him, I felt privileged to bear witness to hundreds more of these peculiar yet endearing Victor Yu idiosyncrasies. Never once in the years that I knew him was he anything but supportive of me. He and Mama welcomed me into their family with open arms, although it probably didn't hurt that A, I was Taiwanese, B, a child of physicians, and C, pre-med myself in college. We've heard that he was demanding of his students and maybe of his children too, but he was never demanding of me. His goofy mannerisms put me at ease from the get-go. He was a huge supporter of my career, both as a teacher and a physician, always reassuring and encouraging. I think he had a soft spot in his heart for family doctors and primary care, having worked as a GP for a few years in Denver before becoming an infectious disease specialist in Pittsburgh. He was a huge supporter of me as a mother as well, sending volumes of emails to me over the years with his commentaries on Koby, Oscar, and Iris. how delightful they were, how demanding they were, how active they were. And actually, there's a whole theme here of how demanding they, and especially Koby, were as babies. Of course, he never shied from sharing his opinion, as you all know. But he always seemed to end each message with a comment on what a great mother I was to them and what wonderful children they were. As a new mom, hearing those words from a seasoned parent who's raised two pretty spectacular kids of his own is deeply meaningful to me. Baba is quite possibly the most unique and interesting person I've ever met in my life, far more so than I will ever be. What kind of person spends the whole time researching the source of Legionella, as they do giving personalized opinions on the Consumer Reports 10 best products rated for both quality and price, or sending movie reviews to his family? I always looked forward to his emails with the subject line, Movie Ratings by Victor Yu. He was quite talented at many things, but what is so unusual about him is that he was also profoundly appreciative of things that he did not know about and expressed a genuine interest in learning about them. He was the quintessential lifelong learner. Loving, curious, well-read, talented, entertaining, intellectual, sincere, unpretentious, hilarious, opinionated, confident, charismatic, fearless. Thank you, Baba, for being all of those things and more to me. Thank you for raising Chen to be the amazing husband, father, son that he is. And thank you for showing us all what it means to have lived a life well lived. We miss you.
Thank you, Grace. I love those emails. Those are classic Victor Yu emails, so I'm glad you were able to pull those out of the archives. Okay, right after, I think I'd like to give Koby. Koby is actually my son. I thought he wanted to have a chance to say some words as well.
As you can imagine, my grandpa was one of the coolest grandfathers any kid could have. He was called so many things by so many people, but I was lucky enough to know him as my gong gong. The void created by the death of someone as beloved as him is still hard to grasp. He was always playing kids' games, telling stories, and shooting family members with toy guns with all the kids in the family. I remember the jokes he used to tell me when I was by your side, your invaluable wisdom and advice that you shared with me, and the passion that you had for the things you loved. We missed him because he's not there to teach us, because he's not there to talk with, because he's not there to play with, because he's not there to laugh with, because he's not there. My grandfather was the grandpa of all grandpas and a shining example to all.
Thanks, Koby. Appreciate that. Okay, so I think we'll like to close out the commentary from the family by talking with Howard, Ting's husband and son-in-law of my father.
Dear Baba, I feel your presence here with us today, so I just wanted to take a little time to say things that I wish I said earlier. You know, the first time when Ting brought me home to meet you, I was pretty nervous. You were this giant in the field, and I was just a green fourth-year medical student. Ting and I had just started dating that summer, and here I was about to join the family for Thanksgiving weekend. I remember I said, "It's very nice to meet you, Dr. Yu," and I was shaking your hand really hard and bowing my head out of respect. You kindly asked me to call you Victor. Over the ensuing days, I proceeded to have a prolonged impromptu interview. You asked me why I was interested in surgery. I spoke excitedly about middle-of-the-night trauma surgeries and liver transplants, oblivious to the fact that you might be concerned for your daughter's future with Montrose especially. I knew we connected though when I described my time in the Peace Corps. JFK's original call for volunteers had moved you. And even though you couldn't leave your medical career and young family to join that first Peace Corps group as you had wanted, I think that had stayed with you. I could see that Ting's Teach for America in the Bronx was an expression of the values of social justice and service that she had inherited from you. Well, it ended up being this wonderful, memorable Thanksgiving. I remember the traditional Madison versus Pittsburgh U's football game, the constant flow of conversation and laughter, and the mantra that the family hummed while holding hands in a circle before chowing down. I knew from the beginning that I wanted to be part of this family too. After Ting and I got married, I faced a significant dilemma. What should I call you? Victor seemed both too casual and too distant now that you were my father-in-law. My sister helpfully suggested I just try avoiding your name altogether and greet you with an enthusiastic, "Hi." After much consideration and with some hesitation, one day I just called you Baba and looked in your face for a reaction. You didn't miss a beat, and we continued talking like it was the most natural thing. I felt like this was the final proof that you accepted me into your family. And then later, when you and Mama Deb became such good friends with my mom and dad, I felt truly happy and grateful for my whole loving family. I remember one time you described a former student of yours as very capable. In the way you said it, I could tell that this was high praise coming from a master physician scientist. And I've also heard you describe Chen and Ting as capable, with a tone of fatherly pride. I would henceforth try my best to become capable in your eyes as well. You were always a great listener and gave much needed support and advice. When I decided to change specialties from surgery to radiation oncology, leaving without a clear job prospect and traveling cross country with Ting and our newborn to live with my mom and dad, you were supportive like no other father-in-law could be. You said to Ting, "You just dodged a bullet." And you correctly predicted that this huge gamble would lead to a more satisfying professional career for me and a happier family life for us all. I've learned many things from you over the years. Professionally, there were the basic principles you have distilled from your own experiences and taught to your students and fellows. You have to see the answer before you have the data. The conventional wisdom is that you do the study, you acquire the data, and then you come to the conclusion. But you told your students, no, you guess what the answer is, and then you go for it. And you have to have sort of a daring leap of faith. These are the words of a visionary. In family matters, I've always admired your patience, energy, and delight in being a parent and grandparent. You always felt that you knew what was best for your children and grandchildren. And by your pride in Chen and Ting, and the way your grandchildren clung to your every story and adventure, I could tell that you had an incredible gift for teaching children. Your ideas on child rearing were both radical and simple. You believed that one could teach kids at an early age, and you're constantly reading to the kids or teaching them math or science, trusting in their capacity to absorb your teachings. You had the philosophy of never let your baby cry. If the child cried, he wanted to be fed. He wanted something. Contrary to the cry it out recommendations of various so-called experts, you picked up the babies all the time, played with them all the time, and in return, they were for you a great source of joy. Well, Baba, your words ring true to me as wise principles for how to lead a fulfilled and happy life. Make a daring leap of faith in everything you do. You can only guess at life's answers or what the future holds, but have the confidence and conviction to just go for it. Daring to take the leap of faith is in itself a success. And never let your baby or loved ones cry. Pick them up, comfort them, teach them, have fun together, and their happiness will bring you joy. Baba, thank you for sharing your deep wisdom and kindness with me. We love you and we miss you always.
Thanks, Howard. Well, it's been great to have you as part of the family, and I hope we won that first year football game. Okay, well, great. Well, that's going to close the commentary from our family. What I'd like to do is to open up to some of our guest speakers, friends and family from really around the country. I'd like to start off with hearing from Janet Stout, who was one of my father's longtime collaborators at the Special Pathogens Lab in Pittsburgh. So Janet, I'll turn it over to you.
Oh, thank you so much. Can everybody hear me okay? Okay, great. Well, first I want to thank the Yu family for the opportunity and the honor to be part of this memorial for Dr. Yu, who I could never really call Victor. It was such a formal thing between the two of us for the longest time. I've known him for over 40 years. It's hard to even imagine saying that, but I met him as a master's student at the Graduate School of Public Health. And when I think about him, my thoughts always return to his love of teaching and his passion for medicine as a physician. And he had numerous sayings, which, we're hearing some of them. And it's like having your mother in your head, you hear them. And in fact, he had one that said, never trust your mother. And it sounds worse than it is. And that's a whole nother story. But one of his other sayings was, every patient was a study patient. And what he knew was that the best ideas for research came from seeing the problems plaguing the patients. And he passed this on to his students, saying, study what you see. I was among many students and fellows that he mentored into great accomplishment. He was unselfish and driven. And this is a theme that we're hearing today. These were qualities that he instilled in his students and in me. Nothing made him happier or made him smile bigger than when he knew I was working longer and later than he was. And I remember he would say, way to go, Stout. It was just a joy to see him smile like that. Many of you also know that it wasn't always fun and games with Victor, but I can tell you, as you know, it was never boring. In our work on Legionnaire's disease, sometimes I was the good cop and he was the bad cop. He was courageous from the first days that I met him. And I think that's also a theme. He alone stood up to the CDC when their policies telling hospitals not to test their water for Legionella put patients at great risk. He also stood up to another government institution, the VA, when bad actors destroyed our life's work out of spite. He went to the press, and it ended in a congressional hearing where we were vindicated. Remember, I said it was never boring. As hard as he worked, he also told us family first. He would play with the children of his female fellows so that they could work. He had as many female students and fellows as he did male students and fellows, which was unusual at the time. He expected greatness from them, and they did not disappoint. I will be forever grateful to Dr. Yu for the opportunities that he afforded me, Without his mentorship and partnership, I wouldn't be the legionellologist that I am today. His dedication and contributions will be long remembered by family, friends, and colleagues with great fondness and immense respect. Thank you again for the opportunity.
Thank you, Janet. I need to know what that "never trust your mother" quote means, because I don't think I know.
I'll explain later.
Okay, well, thank you for that. So next, I'd like to turn it over to Dr. Jenny Grandis, who was also a student of my father's.
Hello, everybody. It is so wonderful to see you all and to be with you in such a sad time. I met Dr. Yu on my ID elective as a fourth-year medical student in 1986. He was nothing short of electrifying. I matched an ENT and quickly altered my fourth-year rotation schedule to spend the rest of it with him and his special pathogens team at the VA. We would go on to perform many research studies, publish dozens of papers, and even co-edit a book. But the most important things that Dr. Yu taught me are not in our writings. With rigor and extreme attention to detail, Dr. Yu taught me how to see and describe the problem, how to listen to patients who always know the truth, how to develop the testable hypothesis, and yes, see the answer, much against classic teaching before you start. How to communicate the significance of the work. And most importantly, how to build and nurture a team. His word was empire, which I always found daunting, but he really was talking about family. But the most important gift that Dr. Yu gave me was simply himself. He was the best mentor ever. Dr. Yu showed me how to navigate the ethically challenging landscape of doing research and working with industry long before this was a topic of conversation. Time and again, he explicitly put my career needs ahead of his own. He advised and protected me when I was confronted with adversity. And with time, he allowed me to help him. This was perhaps his greatest gift, sharing his experiences with me as he endured his own challenges allowed me to truly realize the importance of being vulnerable as a leader. When Dr. Yu and his beloved Debbie moved to the Bay Area shortly after I joined the faculty at UCSF, it was another chance to bask in his knowledge and wisdom. It was heartbreaking to witness his decline, but through it all, he never stopped being my mentor and my friend. I owe so much of my success and happiness to Dr. Victor Yu. Thank you for letting me speak with you today.
Thanks, Jenny. Really appreciate that. Okay, well, now I'd like to shift gears a little bit to two people who were also part of the Pittsburgh community. That are big parts of my father and my mother's life there. I'll open up to Tony and Tzielan Lee. I'll let maybe the two of you to figure out who wants to go first. Why don't we start with the father, Tony?
Yes, I'm Tony Lee. I'd like to say a few words about my dear friend Victor Yu. From what you heard so far and read from what Ting and Chen, his children, have written in the Facebook, you know he's really a model father and a family man. I met him over 40 years ago in Pittsburgh. I would characterize him as a man with the three-letter I's. The first I is for integrity. He was a man of his word. He did what he says and kept his promises. That was my experience working with him on many, many projects and programs for the Chinese school, the Organization of Chinese Americans. That's a local Chinese community organization, organizations of the family summer camps, and worked at the ethnic festivals. Now, the second I is for innovation, and you have heard so many people talk about that already. He always figured a new way, new idea, and new solutions to problems. And his publications, his successes in the medical research really testimony to his creativity. Now, the third I is for initiation. He was always the leader, organizer, initiator. He started the tennis classes for the OCA kids. He started the bridge club. We did camping and outing adventures together and led the rafting down the Colorado rivers. And when I heard about that rafting that he did with the family, and I said, I'd like to do that. And you know what? He said, I'll join you. And we went down the Colorado River together again with him. And with the ski trips to Colorado, Canadian Rockies, and we had camping trips all the way to places like Virginia Beach. I got to tell you a story about at Virginia Beach. We were planning to do crabbing on the beach, and that was the only dinner we're going to have that night. So we got some chicken pieces and tied them all in strings and put them into the water. And slowly you pull them out, a crab would be attached to the chicken pieces. And you would grab the crab and throw them into the bucket. It sounded simple. But when we start doing that, because there's so many crabs being attracted by all this food, they all came over and we were catching a number of crabs. However, a lot of people are starting to scream and try to get out of the water because the crabs were biting on their toes. Well, most of us scrambled out of the water, and there was Victor Yu, happily pulling one crab after another out of the water and screaming at Chen, give me another bigger bucket. And we all scream at Victor, come back in, the crab's gonna eat you. And with his favorite big green smile, he turned around and said, and raised one of his feet and showed us he was wearing his sneakers. Well, all of us were barefooted. Well, he was very creative. And that night, he probably caught 50% of the crab we had for dinner. Well, I really treasure our time together with Victor as fellow community activists, nature adventurers, and a love for culinary delights. Especially when we retire, Victor, myself, and several of our friends in Pittsburgh happened to move to California, and we have a number of gatherings periodically. And for what reason? Well, together and talk, of course, but mainly for looking and scouting out good restaurants to try out. Well, that was the good times. We really had great times, Victor. I admire you as a person and forever remember you as a friend. Thank you.
Thank you, Uncle Tony. Actually, Tony was really the true leader, I think, of the Pittsburgh Chinese American community. so I think that's what he would say first, for sure. And then Tzielan Lee was one of his students, but also was Uncle Tony's daughter. So I thought we could get a twofer if we could have Tzielan speak as well.
Thank you, Jen. And thanks, Dad. It's nice to be able to do something together, although we're actually not right next to each other. So I'm very humbled to talk a little bit about Dr. Yu. As everyone has heard, I have a lot of memories as well. When I started working at the Special Pathogens Lab with Janet in Pittsburgh, I was only 13 years old. I had braces and very large glasses, everything that was in the 80s. I had no idea what pathogens were and why they were so special. My parents, luckily, were not in medicine and therefore probably didn't know that actually meant highly contagious and somewhat dangerous. But fresh off a win at a regional science fair, I was really excited. And little did I know what was in store for me in the little building behind the VA Medical Center. So you might ask, what does a 13-year-old do in an infectious disease lab? But Dr. Yu knew. He immediately put me to work, and I started washing glassware. I got really good, and I actually don't mind washing dishes to this day. Washing large beakers, Erlenmeyer flasks, bottles of all sizes. However, soon I was mixing solutions and ingredients for special media that the Legionella bacteria could grow on, called, and I can't believe I still remember it all these years later, BCYE. I think that's what it is, right, Janet? Okay, good. Which stood for Black Charcoal Yeast Extract. Again, I can't believe I've said those words together. In between the duties in the lab, Dr. Yu would let me sit in on his lab meetings and expose me basically to the basics of research. And I started to help some of the research staff. And before I knew it, I was actually working alongside them. Everyone was so welcoming. And that was really due to his leadership and the collaborative atmosphere of the lab that he really bestowed. We would outline materials and methods, work out data collection techniques together. I also learned the equally difficult tasks of scientific writing through him. I would write out a section many times, and he would provide definitely some constructive feedback with his bright red grease pencil. Does anyone else remember that grease pencil? But it was great. I still also remember Shirley, his amazing administrative assistant, furiously typing the voluminous manuscripts that would be coming out of his office. But ultimately, his definitely the ultimate teacher for me. Smart, sharp, someone who was just intimidating enough to push you to be better. And I really appreciated that. He had expectations, but really supported me so I could reach my goals. I had some amazing experiences with him in the lab. He sent me on my first business trip as a teenager to Maryland, where I learned a new technique from another lab. So that was very exciting. I also was able to present our research at a national infectious disease conference in New York City, and I'd never been to New York City. So I really thank him for all the amazing experiences. I did follow him into medicine, but then carved my own path because I had the tools and the foundational building blocks that he helped lay down for me. In addition, I've continued on in academic medicine and have been able to bestow the learnings from him onto my own trainees. And that is really the ultimate for me. Even after I moved to California, he tracked me down to do one last perspective article on Legionella. And of course I'd said yes. You can't take the Legionella out of the girl, even though she's a pediatric rheumatologist now. So I am forever grateful to him for all the time he spent with me, supporting me, and all the wisdom that he imparted to me. And after hearing some of the presentations, I know that I am capable, and I am proud. Ting and Chen, as we grow older, we need to keep all of these memories front and center to share. And I just really appreciate you letting me share some wonderful memories of your dad. Thank you.
Thanks, Tzielan. Appreciate that. No wonder you got into MIT so easily.
That was your dad's help.
That's right. Okay, we have one last speaker, my father-in-law, CJ Chen, who's here with us here in San Jose.
Hi, I'm CJ Chen. I'm actually Chen's father-in-law. My first encounter with Victor Yu was at the time when Grace and Chen's relationship became serious. As a parents, Lin and I really want to find out more about Yu's family. So we first invited Chen to visit us and then gave him a little bit hint and decided to pay them a visit. You know, most of the houses in Pennsylvania, they do not have air conditioner system, but only the heater. When they find out that we are about to visit them, they actually try to install a air conditioner at the guest room to accommodate just 2 Taiwanese people from the red hot deep south. The second encounter with Victor was actually a telephone encounter. Grace went to Jackson Hole, Wyoming, ski with Yu's family. Maybe she had tried too hard and ended up with a broken ankle with some torn ligament. Victor called me that night from the emergency room, apologized profusely to me that she didn't really take good care of, pay attention to my daughter. The third encounter with Victor was his academic visit to the University of Mississippi. Stanley Chapman from Infectious Disease Division and I jointly invited Victor to come to UMC to give us a grand round. It was the first time that night when Victor and I went out for a dinner to the University Club. Then we had a first, one-on-one encounter that we discussed for almost 3 hours about the philosophy to the life, academy, and everything. So this is the first time I started to notice, hey, this guy actually is very humorous too, not only just very serious about the academic work. So as the wedding took place and we started to know and love the Yu's family more and more. In conclusion, in short, I personally find out that Victor was an excellent academician. However, more so, he was a very good teacher and was one of the best researchers, especially in the field of Legionella disease. In case you forget about this one, he was the one doing most of the research and published almost everything, on the Legionella disease during the period of time. But most importantly, Victor was a good human being with a kindness, modest, and a humorous way to deal with everyday life. So I miss him, and I know that you will be in a good place to look at us. Thank you.
Thank you, Dad. Really appreciate that. Well, great. Well, I think hopefully after hearing everyone's presentation, you've gotten a sense for him as a person. I think a lot of common themes came out. And so when I was, actually 2 things I was thinking as I was hearing it. One was, we should have these services before people pass away so that they can actually hear what we had to say. Maybe that's what we should do next time for us. Maybe I'll tell my kids they should do this every year for me. So when I was thinking about what to say today, I was actually originally going to say something else. I was planning on sharing some of my own stories that I thought would highlight my father's life or kind of express some of the quirks that made him so charismatic. But then, I thought we have all these stories about how we viewed him, but most of us probably don't know what he thought about us. He wasn't the most emotive type. And he tended to show his affection often through criticism rather than compliments. That was kind of his natural style. And so I thought I would close today's memorial by sharing what I think he thought about all of you. To his students, he had a very deep commitment to your long-term professional success. He loved to tell us about the brutal interview process he would use to select his students and his fellows. I tell them that they should work all the time, weekends, holidays, and see if they were still interested in working with me, he'd say. But if you made it past that gauntlet and showed your willingness to work, he would devote every effort to your progress. He would tell me about why he would intentionally give his young students first authorship on papers in order to give them a jump start on their research careers. Dr. Tzielan Lee, one of his students, and now a full professor in his own right, told me a great anecdote that I thought I would share. He said, I once visited his office as chief of infectious disease at the Pittsburgh VA. I found that he had many trophies and award plaques stacked in the corner. And I asked him why he didn't display them like everyone else. And he said those trophies and award plaques belonged to his mentors and people who had helped him. Instead, he would only display the awards won by his students. Now, there are a few things that moved him as much as seeing your professional success. And I'm guessing that for many of you, he may never have verbalized it. But please know that he was deeply proud of all of you. To Janet, Stout, and Jenny, among the dozens of students and academic collaborators, you were his pride and joy, his A+ students. In many ways, he considered both of you his greatest legacy as an educator. And to Ting and I, he would often give you his greatest compliment, that you were whip smart, but more importantly, tough. To his medical colleagues and mentors, he fervently sought your counsel and valued your collaborations. It's no secret that my father lived to work, and his relationships with all of you were some of the most important in his life. These relationships were tested at one of his emotional low points in his life, when the VA bureaucrats had destroyed his isolate collection that had been built over 30 years. The support of many of you at this service who offered counsel and penned a petition of support in the Journal of Clinical Infectious Disease was something he really never forgot. To his friends in Pittsburgh, you were a source of joy through most of his adult life. Tennis, chess, and the Chinese American community were the pillars of his social life over the 20 years we spent in the Burgh. Because of many of you here today, really almost too many to name, Pittsburgh will always remain our family's hometown. To his friends from youth and college, he loved to regale us with stories of growing up in Minneapolis and attending Carleton College. Interestingly, most of his stories were about his classmates who outshined him academically or athletically, surely a very high bar. Thank you for coming to remember him after 40+ years. To Uncle Bob and Aunt Joyce, it's hard for me to find words to describe what you meant to him. Uncle Bob would often tell me that my father was competitive with him, but that perspective actually always surprised me because he never once said anything to me to suggest that. Uncle Bob, he was always proud of you, would constantly tell me about your strengths, your Tai Chi skills, your athletic achievements, your movie star looks, and of course, your wonderful kids. And Joyce, he was always proud of your work at the UN, your obvious competence, and even more, your passion for social justice. He thought you were a doer, not a talker, something he admired very deeply. In the end, I think he saw the two of you as his most trustworthy partners in life. If you had to pick people to join in a foxhole, I'm quite sure it would have been the two of you. To my cousins, Kai, Dayton, Clarissa, and Alicia, one of the reasons he invested so heavily in making sure our families saw each other every year was because he wanted us to be close. He thought often about your careers and your personal lives, wanting to contribute in any way he could from afar. And trust me, it was probably better that it was from afar. I have no doubt that if anything had ever happened to your parents, that my father would have happily raised you as his own without hesitation. To my kids and nephews, one of his great joys was being your playmate. It's why he stockpiled gifts for you, labeled with your name and the appropriate age of gifting. And it's why he always insisted on giving you the gift himself, so you'd associate that fun with him. Koby, he was always so proud of your diligence and your good nature and your honesty. He was sure you would become a doctor. No pressure. Oscar, he was always amazed by your athletic gifts, especially when he saw you do gymnastics. And Iris, he thought you were very clever, especially in how you make me do whatever you want. To Grace, with no exaggeration, he loved you as a second daughter. Unlike Ting and I, you became the doctor he always wanted. Moreover, you were a family practitioner, especially that he revered because he considered it the noblest of all in medicine. When you received the teaching award at Stanford, he was genuinely impressed, jokingly indignant that he had never won that award when he was there. To Ting, there were two things for which Bob had ultimate respect. The first was social service, and the second was writing talent. That's why you didn't become a doctor, you did become the second best thing, when you became a writer and then became a teacher. During all your years at People magazine, and even more when you joined Teach for America, Bob would constantly tell me of your accomplishments. Did you know that Tarek, one of your students, Ting's students, is going to college now? He'd ask. When I cleaned up his house after we moved him from Sunnyvale, I found a box with dozens of your People magazine articles, all cataloged neatly in a folder. He never failed to remind me of your superior comedic and writing skills. If Bob were around now, I think he would have been even more proud of you today. I know this because you made me so proud watching you care for him during his illness. Visiting Bob during his periods of confusion and paranoia was quite emotionally traumatizing for me. And yet you would visit him nearly every day, often for hours, keeping him company even when it was brutally unpleasant to do so. You've given so much of your soul to taking care of him this past year, spending countless days at his bedside, that I've been as worried about you as I was about him. If you were here today, he would tell you that you were his dream daughter, and it was time to release that obligation on your spirit. You've devoted your emotional self to his care, and now it's time to take care of yours. Finally, to my mother, he would always tell us that you were the most beautiful woman he'd ever seen. You were the great love of his life. And even in the last few months, when he had largely lost grip on reality, he missed you terribly. The story of his last night with our family tells the tale. By the fall of last year, my father had been living in my home in Cupertino with 24/7 assistance. During this time, my mom was in Boston living near Ting. As Thanksgiving approached, we wanted to reunite them for the holidays, as they hadn't seen each other for over a year. When they met again for the first time, my father doted on my mother the entire day. He kept repeating the same question. I've been looking for you for months. Did you ever look for me? The first few days of the holiday went well, but by the last night, his confusion and delusion worsened. He kept walking out of the house into the cold, freezing night, insisting that he had to go out and save you because he thought you were lost in the city. We coaxed him back in, but his memory cycle was short, and within a minute, he would wander back out again. This went on for hours until we simply couldn't keep him in the house at all. Out of options, we called 911, and he was hospitalized for a final time. For me, this was his dying moment in my memory, because the last time we spent together as a family. And that moment came to pass because of his subconscious desire to take care of my mother. Later, when we were cleaning out his things, we found handwritten post-it notes lamenting his slipping memory and telling us, or reminding himself to take care of Deb. That's my mother's name. Mom, I think this was a deep expression of his love for you. He was struggling so hard to take care of you, even when he was beginning to sense that he couldn't take care of himself. So Ting and I will vow to make sure we'll take great care of you too. Thanks again to all of you for coming today. It means so much to our family that you spent the time to attend. So with that, we'll close our formal program by showing a slideshow of the pictures throughout his life, and hopefully some of you can see yourselves there as well. Afterwards, we invite you to stay and reminisce with all the other attendees should you have any time. If you know our family well, we love storytelling, especially if it's about us. So thank you and best wishes.
I fell for you, and I knew the vision of your love, loveliness. I hope and I pray that someday I'll be the vision of your happiness. Oh, oh, earth angel, earth angel. Darling dear, love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you. I fell for you, and I knew the vision of your love. I hope and I pray that someday I'll be the vision of your happiness. Oh, earth angel, please be mine. My darling dear, love you all the time. I'm just a fool in love with you.
All my bags are packed, I'm ready to go. I'm standing here outside your door. I hate to wake you up to say goodbye, but the dawn is breaking, it's early morn. Taxi's waiting, he's blowing his horn. Already I'm so lonesome I could cry. So kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go. I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe, I go. There's so many times I've let you down, so many times I've played around. I tell you now, they don't mean a thing. Every place I go, I think of you. Every song I sing for you. When I come back, I'll wear your wedding ring. So kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go. I'm a-leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe, I hate to go. Now the time has come to leave you. One more time, let me kiss you. Then close your eyes, I'll be on my way. Dream about the days to come when I won't have to leave alone. About the time I won't have to say. Kiss me and smile for me. Tell me that you'll wait for me. Hold me like you'll never let me go. I'm leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Leaving on a jet plane. I don't know when I'll be back again. Oh, babe, I hate to go.
Thank you to many of you who contributed photos for the slideshow as well. So I think, Alice, I think we can open it up. And so obviously that's the end of the formal program, but obviously invite anyone who'd like to stick around and chat. I think many of you probably know each other, so feel free to stick around if you have time. Dongfei, thank you for staying up or waking up very early in Taiwan. And same thing to all the other Taiwanese colleagues. My dad always had a soft spot for all of his Taiwanese students. I also see a number of Carleton classmates. Actually, it's interesting because I don't know a lot of my dad's college stories. So if you have any, feel free to provide them.
So I'm Alice. I'm Grace's sister, and Chen's sister-in-law, and I've known Chen since college. And I just was thinking about how your dad, Chen, would tell everyone to go to medical school. He told us to go to medical school. He told my husband to go to medical school. This is my husband had already done. Oh, I'm sorry, I might have been muted. I was going to say, I'm Alice, I'm Grace's sister. And I was just remembering how your dad would tell everyone to go to medical school. You know, he told me to go to medical school. I was in medical school, so he didn't really need to tell me again. He told my husband to go to medical school. My husband had a PhD in a non-medical subject, but he said, it's not too late. You can still go to medical school. He told my in-laws, so my husband's parents, that it was not too late for them to go to medical school too. And so it's just such a funny memory, you know, I have of how your dad was. I think it spoke to just the fact that he really loved his job, loved his work, you know, which is such a wonderful thing to have in your life, right? And I do think he really gave you, Chen, and you know, Ting too, that spirit, right? That spirit to find the thing that you're really going to love to do in your life, you know, that's really going to kind of you'll feel passionate about, you know, and then to kind of go for it, like, you know, doggedly, no matter what. And I'm sure, you know, he's so proud of you, both of you, and, you know, and the great lengths you have both gone to, you know, help take care of him and to honor his life in your work and in yourselves.
Hello, this is Don Young. I was a fellow classmate of Victor's, so I met him in 1961. I was a physics major with a minor in mathematics, which is where we overlap. Vic actually was a major in mathematics, whereas most of the medical people were majoring in biology. But we were in several math classes together. I don't remember ever telling me I should go to med school, but if he did, I would have told him no. But as a researcher in physics, I really respect and admire the work that Victor did. My wife got to know him because it was mentioned he went to Carleton reunions, and we also go to Carleton reunions. And
yeah, you can see us better. Flight.
Yes. He
are we going to get in there or not?
You can. Okay.
Well, let me just finish on. We were at Carleton reunions where my wife met him, and as the email said, he was definitely socially adept, very outgoing, and accepted my wife as a fellow Carl, and we had debates about affirmative action. He took on the Carleton president once, suggesting that they were trying to keep Asians out of Carleton.
And we saw that passion for his work firsthand when he did a panel at a reunion on Legionnaire's disease, and the level of math and technical information was a little overwhelming, but his gusto made it so worthwhile.
So thank you for having this memorial for a wonderful friend.
Thank you. Really appreciate those comments. I think we had Rhonda, I think, wanted to say something, or great.
Yeah, Doug would like to say something.
Great.
Yeah, hello out there.
Hi.
I'm Doug Ettinger from Pittsburgh. I didn't know his medical career that well, although I knew about Legionnaire's disease. But I loved playing tennis and chess with Victor. He had great competitive spirit, but he was always looking for the fun in it.
Yeah.
And I always remember his dedication to his topspin serve. It was amazing.
Even with a hitch.
Out high, and I'd have to really reach up and get it.
Yeah.
So I never forget his serve. He put a lot into it. So we're really going to miss him. We all loved him here in Pittsburgh. Thank you.
Everybody speak perfect English, but I want to contribute some not perfect English. Actually, Victor was my boss. I was not his student. I worked for him for the recent technology. He involved so much. Then later I worked as a clinical coordinator for his NIH research. And we fought because he argued with me why I didn't let my son go to the medical school. And I argued with him, why you make your son going to medical school and even make your daughter marry a doctor? Because my husband was a doctor, and he thought the kids from every doctor should go to the medical school. And one thing is, I think he understands I cannot speak perfect English, but he still hired me. And at that time, we had an interview. I didn't know my boss was a giant because he was tiny, skinny. And later I know, my God, he was a giant in the infection disease. And I had no idea why he hired me. I didn't speak perfect English, but as I knew him. I think he hired me at SPA because I went to the best university in Taiwan. I came to this country to went to the best university for my graduate school. So maybe that's why he hired me. But one thing, he also hired my autistic son. My autistic son went to the Korean University. And he always loved the graduate student from Korean University. I didn't know why. He hired him and he worked with my autistic son, worked for him for 2.5 years. Victor Yu built my son's foundation for his future. Later on, my son went to become a medical coder. He worked full-time for Allegheny Hospital. I think without the experience for working with Dr. Yu, I don't think my son can become the way he is now. There's one thing about his last name. I always didn't want to call him Dr. Yu. I always call him Dr. Yu because he once wrote his name in Chinese to me. I said, why you call you? You always you. You should be Yu. And he loved. And he loved his kids so much. You know, so many times he mentioned your guy's name. I didn't know who you look like. And finally, I was able to meet you. And I want to say hi to Deborah. I admire your mother so much because I don't know how she put up to your father and made him to still love her dearly. My God, Dr. Yu love you so much. And I know once he introduced me to the, okay, she is genius. And I told him, take 50% from what he said, because he just tried to annoy you. And Deborah, you are wonderful. And you raised 2 beautiful kids, and Dr. Yu was very, very proud of. And excuse my poor English. I hope you all understand what I'm trying to say. Okay.
Thank you, Tzielan Lee. Thank you very much for those kind words. Really appreciate that. I know he talked about you quite often when you were working at ESUN. So thank you very much for those kind words. I see some other folks maybe who want to speak next. Anyone, feel free to jump in.
Are we on audio? Just to tell you, Joe and I really were late into the tennis game. And your father and mother, they were just so, they went out of their way to help us get into the tennis group, to learn and love the game. They were always so pleasant. And your dad so loved your mother. Your children, he talked about you all the time. They both did. And it's just been so impressive in our lives. And they joined us down at the beach several years for a week's vacation. And it was just such a wonderful experience. They're very loving people. And your father was always so happy. And he would ask us about our grandchildren all the time. He was so interested in people being happy. And that will always stay with us. Thanks for letting us be a part of this.
Oh, thank you. No, he loved those beach trips, many of those years. So thanks for having him and hosting him. I think he looked at you guys as some of his best friends in Pittsburgh.
You tell him about that. About food.
Oh, the one year when he went there, he didn't, each night a couple would take the food dinner preparation on. And he and your mom didn't really know what to make. And they said, well, they would just go buy something. They bought so much food for 3 nights. We ate off that lunch, dinner, And it was breakfast, whatever. It was, they were just so generous about everything. And it's so wonderful to know them. And give your mom a hug from us.
Yeah.
We miss them.
Well, they had many talents, but I know this, cooking was not one of them. Salma, did you want to say something?
Yes, I'm actually Joyce's friend. And so I met Victor in 1966. I went to visit Joyce, and remember he decided he was going to take me on a tour, Joyce and I, and show me Minneapolis. It was my first time there. And it was wintertime, and the car spun around on the road. And I was in a panic. I said, oh my God, I'm out here in Minnesota and I'm going to be in an accident. And I live in New York. And when we kind of got it all righted up, he said, welcome to Minnesota. And I said, gee, thank you so much. But it's always been a joy to be with the family at holiday events. And I had two other fond memories of Victor and Debbie. Once when I went to Pittsburgh, I made a point to go visit with them, and we had a great lunch together. But then the other time that was really special, I had moved into an apartment, and Joyce was concerned and worried about it. And she talked to Victor, and he said, Joyce, you have the ability to allow her to rent your apartment. So what's the problem? Go tell Selma that she's going to be moving into your apartment. And that's what happened, And so I just always, really found Victor to be very special. I didn't have brothers of my own. So it was really a wonderful experience to have that older brother checking on me through my friends. So I just really appreciated being part of the family and getting to see everyone as they grew up. So thank you so much. This was a wonderful tribute, and I really am deeply honored to have been a part of it. Thank you.
Thanks for that great story. I also want to make sure I catch a couple people, Dr. Narita and some others who called in from Japan as well. I know the time zone difference there was pretty brutal. So thanks to them as well for attending. I also know I see Tom Johnson, his old college roommate. A lot of great stories from college from him as well. And we've posted a bunch of them. I sent them in an email. I tried to collate everyone's anecdotes. So hopefully, if you didn't get one, feel free to just ping me, and you can put your email in the chat, and I can email you one as well. Lots of people sent over nice little stories that I thought were quite funny. And then maybe Zhang Fengyi, I saw you went off mute, so if you'd like to say something, feel free.
Chen, and also Debbie. At this moment, I have a lot of words to say. I want to thank you, Dr. Yu, for his mentorship. During the 2 years between 1994 to 1996, I stayed at Pittsburgh. Dr. Yu treated me and my family very nice. He is a gentleman. He loves kids, and also he is very gentle to my wife, very kind. And for me, he request me very strict. Before I visit Pittsburgh, he asked me a question. Do you want to work day and night? And I say yes. Then that's the reason why I was accepted to be a fellow at Pitts. Later on, Dr. Yu told me he reviewed any fellow. at the first time, he always asks this question. He wants to let some fellow to be free. Then if the fellow didn't have the patience and wants to be study hard, then the fellow is not fulfill the criteria that Dr. Yu requested. For me, Dr. Yu taught me a lot. I think he is very, because I worked at the lab and also in the office almost every day. And Dr. Yu always stay very late in the night. And he always forget to eat lunch because the lunch box always in the waiver, yeah. And I asked, whose food is this? Because that is from the noon and even to the evening. No one take that. And I know that was Dr. Yu's. He worked too hard and always forget the food. And also, he also taught me a lot of how to conduct a research. Always he say, you have to see the answer before the study. I think that is right. From the clinical field, we always see the answer from the daily practice, but we didn't have a systematic approach to study, to validate, to prove that is right. Because only a case, maybe you cannot say that is, we may not generate to all to know it is the rule, but any anecdote case actually is very important for the clinician. Dr. Yu also emphasized this. A lot of the important study actually is from some real case, some findings in the patient, then that became an important finding to the world. After you did a good study, especially a prospective study, he said, never do retrospective study. But unfortunately, we are still collect a lot of retrospective cases. But however, if we want to validate the truth, a prospective study actually is better. After I left Pittsburgh for almost 20 more years, Dr. Yu still taught me a lot. And also, we have studies, and he always guide us and also give us a lot of important comments. And then during the process of published paper, he always help us to revise, to give comments, because I think Dr. Yu's his writing actually is excellent. And also he can make a point and also taught us how to make a point. If any paper, you should have at least one point to show what is the impact. If you publish this study today, then the clinicians change their practice, then your paper is a good paper. Dr. Yu's teaching always in my mind. I think what he have done and what he have taught actually for me is during my life, he's the greatest mentor I ever met. I miss Dr. Yu, and our family miss Dr. Yu, and Chen, Debbie, and also Ting. You take care, and all of our fellows. I think we always miss Dr. Yu, and thank you. Want to say thank you to Dr. Yu. Someday we'll meet in the heaven.
I think I have a unique relationship with your father in that I knew him before any of you came into this world. And I was his freshman and sophomore year roommate at Carleton College. And I was thinking, as I was getting ready to say something, that I don't remember how that came to be, but I'm sure glad it did. And during this last hour and a half, a couple of people mentioned that how much he emphasized sleep and how hard it was for him to get as much as he wanted. And in college, I knew when Vic was awake, he didn't move, he didn't get out of bed, but his foot would start brushing against the sheets. So he had his own snooze button, and his foot would keep moving to keep him from falling back to sleep, but he could still stay in bed for a while. And so I got used to that sound. I could still hear it today. And then also, I was a ferocious studier, but I think Vic studied harder than I did. At least his concentration was better. Nothing could break it. Room full of people telling stories. He'd right there focused on his studies. It was absolutely amazing. And then 55 years went by and I had no contact. But I got back in touch with Vic about 2 years ago. And I'm starting a cookie company, and Vic was extremely encouraging, and I will carry that encouragement forward into the venture in the coming years. I thank you so much for letting me participate in this, because the riches between when I knew him in college and the contact I had a year and a half ago are so evident and abundant and beautiful. So thank you.
Hey, Tom, out of curiosity, was he a good student in college? Because he always said that Carleton was really hard and he didn't do that well. Out of curiosity, what's your impression of that? I'm just curious.
I thought he was somewhere between good and excellent. I never knew his grades, but there were no disasters. He didn't flunk anything. I know that. And, so I have a very solid impression of his ability and intelligence and work ethic.
Just curious. Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My son is Howard. So I'm Ting Yu's father-in-law. I didn't go to medical school, but my son did go to medical school. After they married, Victory, they live in Pittsburgh, but we live in San Jose, so we didn't have much chance to hang out, get together. But later, they moved to California also, moved to Bay Area. So we do go out and eating. I was in choir group, and I invite them to come to our concert. And then after that, we go to restaurant to eat. So I remember one thing, that after the concert, we go to a restaurant to eat, and my wife suggests her favorite restaurant. So we went there. We find out that restaurant was closed, and then there instead there's a new restaurant open in that place, and that's Indian food. And Victor suggests that since there's a new open, and say to support that the place. So Victor suggests that we go in there and to see how good their food and service was. And so we go in there, Indian food. and we get in there, and then that's we try that food, and Victor actually gives some suggestions, and it very into the details. So in that case, I found out that Victor is really supportive of the new business and very get in details and not shy away to give suggestions. And he even suggests to the restaurant manager that they will try their services and foods, and then actually kind of recommend to the friends, and then come back for them. So I don't know that he did that or not, but that just shows that Victor is really supportive of the community and into the details and not shy away to give suggestions. Yeah, that's kind of my memory of the Victor. Okay.
Thank you for that. I think we have the Chen family teed up.
Okay, first of all, Lori and I would like to say hi to Debbie. Last time we saw them was 2019 in we're in San Francisco, and we had lunch with them at the New England Lobster House right by the airport. So that's the last time we saw them, and we'd like to say hi to her. In case, first of all, I'm not a doctor, okay? Unlike 90% of you, evidently, we're not in the medical field. So just to show you, we've got other people here. I haven't seen Tom since college. I used to spend a little bit of time in the room visiting with Victor. And Chen, your question was the one thing that I remember about your father. He always used, first of all, we were pretty close in grade point average at Carleton, and which means we weren't very smart, unlike Tom, who's really smart, or Don. And we used to joke about it all the time. And the one thing I remember about him saying is, Carleton is too hard.
Yeah.
I would never send my kids there. So instead they sent you to Harvard, obviously. The other thing is we really haven't been, we don't see them all the time because we live in Hawaii. They lived in Pittsburgh, but we did see them when we drove across country twice in 1979. Both of you were alive then, as I can't really remember. I guess you're in Mount Lebanon or something. And we stopped by, we stayed there a couple of days, twice. I stayed there once. I left my car there because we were moving from LA to DC. So I drove one car across country. I left it in Pittsburgh with your parents at their house. I flew back to California. Then we drove the other car with Lori, and we stayed again with them. So we, in 1979, stayed twice. I'm sure you don't remember us at all. You were really little. And since then, we've seen them various times at the Carleton reunions. And I think we visited Pittsburgh one other time too. And then we saw them in San Francisco. So just to let everybody out there know, not everybody, we knew them way before he became a doctor and way before you knew them. Oh, one more thing. There were only, in our class at Carleton, there were only, Tom can correct me if I'm wrong, there were only 3 Chinese people there. It was me, Victor, and a guy named Albert Ye.
Oh yeah.
And that was it. right? Do you remember any other Chinese guys? No, that was it. And I was from Hawaii. Back in those days, we could not afford to fly back and forth to Hawaii for Christmas and whenever the spring breaks. So I remember I can't remember which year it was, I spent Christmas with the Yus, which is the first time I met Joyce and Bob. So and I don't think I've seen Joyce since then, except on Facebook. So
yeah, he would always
about it.
Yeah, he did always say it was real. That's what he kept saying. He said Carlton was just too hard, and he said Tom Johnson was like just a genius. He didn't have to work very hard.
Right.
Yeah, that's true.
Actually,
Tom's a genius.
Great.
So that's all I have to say.
Michael, didn't we go to some prom or some dance at Carlton?
Yes, yeah, I can't remember how. I think your father drove you down to Carlton, and we went to a prom. I think it might have been junior prom. Was it, or just another dance?
Yeah, I just remember I was so awkward.
Weren't we all?
No, but Victor said that you and Lori became really expert, like ballroom dancers, and
oh yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he would share that you know, that was so wonderful in your retirement that you'd become. And have you entered some contests as well?
Yes. Yeah, that's in San Francisco when we saw Debbie and Victor in 2000. We were actually at a competition.
Right. He said, isn't that amazing? I mean, he was saying, what am I doing? A little garden here and a little tennis. You know, Michael and Lori are winning contests dancing. It was really extreme. We were all really impressed. Still are.
Actually, Don was a physics major. I think you mentioned, Don. He used to always say that if you want to know someone who's really smart, they're a physics major.
Yeah, they're only like.
I thank him for that.
Yeah, but Victor's analysis of Carlton and high school was that Tom and probably Michael went to Punahou, didn't you?
No, I went to Iolani.
Oh, okay. Yeah, another, low-level school. But Victor went to a working class high school, and it was not at the same level as the prep schools or the good public high schools that many of the other Carleton students had experienced. So Victor felt that he was at a huge disadvantage, that the first year of advanced calculus at Carleton, Tom Johnson had already had in high school. And so Tom was not studying at all, but Victor was learning it all the first time. And he vowed, Chen, that his son would never experience that.
I'll be there.
You choose anything for me.
Vic was salutatorian of his high school class, I think.
Yeah.
I think it was valedictorian.
I mean, Oren Henry, who was on much earlier, was the valedictorian. So he was here. And Oren became a doctor as well. And they, I think, overlapped in medical school for a few years because Victor had to take bio and chemistry to start medical school because he was a math major, as you said. So Oren Henry was on earlier, and Oren went to high school and part of medical school with Vic. So Vic vowed that his kids would not have that disadvantage, that fundamental educational disadvantage, and that they would be able to excel without having to have a handicap. And my parents saw it too, And so I got to go to a private school. Sorry.
Okay.
Sign off.
Hey, Kevin.
Aloha.
We'll sign off now.
Michael, if you come, Michael and Lori, if you come through New York City, please look us up. We'd love to see you and host you if you can.
Oh, that'd be fun.
Okay.
Okay, great. Thank you. Take care. I think Mr. Wu wanted to say something.
I know your daddy. It's a little bit later than most people because we live in the South Side. And yesterday I forwarded the picture to you. Did you receive it?
I did. I got it. Yep. So thank you.
You got them.
Our meal just a couple of months ago.
Okay. And so I thought I'd make sure you got that last. Is that the last photo we got?
Yes, last photo. At least last photo of I think the two of you.
Yeah. Okay. And what about all the other Pittsburgh people? I think. But I always enjoy talking to you, Dad. And hi, Debbie. I don't know. Yeah, Debbie, how are you?
Good.
But the important thing is right now is taking care of your mom. Myself, well, I'm not in the medical field. I had my doctorate in engineering from Wisconsin, so close to Minnesota. I have been playing softball on the lake in Minnesota, too cold. And but we live in the South Side, and my kids grew up a little bit. They didn't join the most. You guys, I know all those camping stuff, and both my boys, they are in your daddy's field when he's teaching at the University of Washington Surgical Department, and he was a chemical engineer. I don't know how he changed his mind. He graduated from UPenn. My younger boy was medical oncologist. My older boy is oncology surgeon. He's teaching at the University of Washington. I live with my younger son. He practiced in Santa Cruz. But the thing is, we met your parents through the years, and I always enjoyed talking to him. And last gathering we have in November, it's really fortunate for us, and we won't have a chance to meet. It was a surprise, whatever happened. But I do believe, he's resting in peace. And the most important now is taking care of your mom. So.
Thank you for the comments. Yeah, we're doing our best to take care of her.
Yeah, so, good.
Yeah. Dr. Cho, I know she's been there as well, and I know that she was also one of my dad's favorite students. So I don't know if she's still there, but thank you also to her for coming as well. And then some other folks I just see on the list. I know Linda worked with my dad for God knows how long, and I can't even imagine what that was like.
Excuse me, this is Kevin, and he wants to thank Dr. Yu for all the opportunity he gave him, and he become a medical coder.
Oh, great.
Kevin, let's start your son, Chen. And did you meet Deborah? In the office, once Deborah went to the office.
Yeah, I think that was a long time ago.
Thank you. And Kevin he is now, because your father gave him the foundation, and he paid the tax. He is a full-time worker. Even he carry autistic in his shoulder, but your father really built up his life. And we both want to thank him and his family, because he inspires. Thank you.
Thank
Kevin,
you.
say-
Congratulations, Kevin. Thank you. Congratulations. Okay. I think maybe Geraldine, I see you're unmuted, so maybe you may be the one to take us out today.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Oh, good. Because I am not good at this. I was talking with my brother Jim today and my brother Bob, and they both said that they were not going to be able to attend, but they wanted me to say that we will miss him tremendously. He was such a good friend to all of us for all the years. And Vic and Debbie were at my 75th birthday party 3-4 years ago. And it was so nice to see them and to finally meet Debbie. And we just had wonderful conversations, and everyone who I've talked to, say, well, my friend Vic Yu is not with us anymore. And they said, oh, he was so nice at your party. It was so wonderful. I had such a wonderful conversation with him. Everybody had a wonderful conversation with your dad, because he could speak to anybody on any level. And I think that is truly an amazing gift to have. And so we'll miss him a lot.
Thank you.
Gary, thank you so much for coming. I remember you.
Hi.
As a teenage girl, actually.
Oh, yes, I do remember that. It was, of course, a million years ago in the last geological era, but I remember.
Yeah, because you lived just on the corner in the big house.
That was half a block from you guys.
Right. Well, thank you so much for coming. I don't know if Bob knows that you're here, because wasn't Bob friends with your brother?
Yeah, hey,
yes.
Jerry. This is Bob. Oops.
Hi, Bob. Yeah, Jim says hi.
Hi, Jerry. Say hello to Jim and Bob. I remember you guys, you lived across the street from us.
Yep.
And Victor always said you were one of the smartest kids at Marshall.
Well, he was smarter than me, that's for sure.
It's nice to hear you again.
Nice to hear you also. Let's keep in touch.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.
Well, thank you, everyone. I think I don't see anyone else on the list. So thank you, obviously, to everyone here for attending. It was great to see everyone, even if it was on Zoom. And even though it's on camera, in some ways, it's actually nicer because everyone can show up. Anyhow, cheers to my dad, and we'll see him on the other side, as they say. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you for having this.
I don't know how to leave.
Oh, there's a little red
Must stay
button in the
forever.
lower right.
Yeah, we can actually.
Oh, here it is. Yeah.
Okay,
Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.
Okay, take care, everybody.
Oh, we should just get some drinks or something.
Bye, Dr. Zhang. We'll see you
everyone.
Taiwan. Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Hi, thanks, guys.
Wait, you hold on, Uncle Bob, if you want. 1 second.
Yeah, don't hang on. Did you mute me?
Yeah.
No? Good job, Uncle Bob.
You
Hey,
say hi.
Hey,
Hey, Tricia.
oh, hi. Yeah.
Thanks, Alice, for all your help.
Oh, no
Yes,
problem.
thank you so much, Alice.
No, you guys did such a great job. Really a wonderful, wonderful job.
Who else here?
Oh, hi.
Hey, Katie. Hey, Katie, I heard you have food for us, too?
I like just when you go to services like this in Ireland, everyone after the service goes to someone's house, whoever's hosting, and they have finger food.
No, I kind of feel like I should go get a glass of wine now or something. Right?
I made some hors d'oeuvres, and Trisha baked some cookies this morning, and we invited everyone over so we can have like a celebration after and share stories. And Kai found a bunch of photographs from.
Yeah, I told him.
Oh yeah, and so he spread them out here, and we've got flowers in the kitchen and stuff. So yeah, it's I couldn't watch some of, when I see someone cry, it's like when I see someone throw up, I will react.
So Katie was vomiting on the side.
It was very tearful over here as well, and but
yeah.
I loved how you pulled it together and then just kept going through the stories, and then you almost picked yourself up through them, which is nice. And then Joyce, I'm wearing a jade necklace that you gave me, and I don't know if it's from you or your mother, but I'm wearing that.
Joyce not there.
Joyce isn't here right now, I don't think. But I love it. It's beautiful. It is gorgeous.
Yes, and I was asking Kaz, like, what do you wear? Do I wear white, black, red? What do you want me to wear? So I was like, I'll wear white and black.
Hey, we should have had you play bagpipes. I've always loved hearing bagpipes.
Isn't that Scotland?
Scotland, Ireland. Same thing.
Koby, you did a really good job.
Thank you. You did, Koby.
Yeah.
Hey, should we take a group picture?
Oh, actually, this is still recording. We have to figure out how to cut this off.
You want me to stop it? I'll stop it right now.
Oh yeah.